So welcome to the Thursday, April 13th, 2023 Food Ontology Curation meeting. And today we're going to talk about dairy product hierarchy with Rhiannon reviewing some of the past material in the issues. And so let's take it away. Rhiannon.
Oh, I didn't realize, sorry, didn't realize I was still muted. Yeah, I'll switch to sharing my screen again. And I don't know if everyone has this document. I put it in the agenda, but in case people don't have that open, I'm gonna just pop this in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's still a little bit much to look at, but I'll hopefully try to help walk everyone through what's happening here. A little bit of a recap and overview, but there were kind of three different issues that came up that were part of this discussion. It initially started off with somebody wanting plant milk and then being kind of like, well, how do we approach milk and what is not milk? And so it branched out into, okay, so how are we defining dairy and how are we defining milk substitutes or analogs or imitation milk? And it's kind of ended up with Europe has a very strict definition of milk that is not inclusive of plant milk. Although some exceptions sounds like it's occurred, but we'll get down to that in a bit. This is just kind of a quick overview. The FDA has now approved milk as a descriptor for non-mammalian milk based on how people have been using it. So going a kind of more descriptive versus prescriptive approach. But then there are many other user groups who are also trying to accommodate that Damien has mentioned in one of the threads, and I've included down below. So the intent with how we're approaching this problem is FoodOn intends to create a hierarchy that can accommodate all of these users. And then we can use SLIMs to subset the ones that are more appropriate for different organizations or regions or whatever the usage is. We can try to make subsets that make it really easy for people to extract the version of the branch that they need. So the last version we had of some of the product branches, we had dairy food product and so these are just within the issues is we had dairy food product is a food product. So it's a food product that has mammalian milk or a milk component as an ingredient. We were changing this because initially we had the definition refer to butterfat and then the butterfat referred to dairy. So it was kind of cyclical logic that weren't really informing each other. And then rather getting too far into the food science specifics about like ratio of different components, we're just saying that butterfat is the fatty portion of milk. And then we can get more specific on different organisms and how they're organized, like their versions of it.
So so that highlights the ones which you have highlighted. Are these the existing definitions?
No. None of these are the existing definitions. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to see the existing definitions, I believe they are present in the issue threads.
Right.
Yeah, the existing definition for this one was basically making it had to be cow, I believe, and it referred to having butterfat in it, and then butterfat referred to being a dairy product, and it was kind of some cyclical logic. It might have been in a different thread actually. So it's in one of the three threads. But so this is the new proposed one after some of our discussion, is that having a simplified one that it is a dairy food product has mammalian milk or milk component as an ingredient. And then therefore we had to define what is a mammalian milk food component. So the new term would be, we had settled on a food component which exists in the material secreted by the mammary gland during lactation. And so this would be based on the milk, the Uberon version of milk. And then when it came to talking about this into a little bit more the organizational structure, so we will have mammalian milk food product would be derived from the Uberon term milk. We decided in a previous FoodOn Curation meeting that milk needed to no longer be in the food product branch, that we need kind of milk food products, dairy food products, that to be a separate thing from the Uberon version of milk, and that should just be under bodily fluids and referenced by axioms. And that we wanted to avoid conveying a specific state with the upper level food product branches here. That's like how we have liquid or powdered, we're just not going to be state specific. So end up with a mammalian food product branch, which we can be more state specific with below if we needed to, or people can use composite terms if they want to. And then having mammalian milk by organism. and specify, because I think in a lot of cases with milk, it's generally it's not labeled as cow milk, but the definitions describe them as cow milk. So trying to make sure that we have general versions of milk, and then we can have the more specific cow versions of milk. And then we said, so we want to do the same thing with non-plant milks, making it clear that the annotations that use like dairy and non-dairy, yeah, right, applies to like not just cattle. We hadn't decided, we'd initially said food product, let's do not, something along the lines, exact label still to be discussed, non-dairy milk product. Because initially FoodOn generally does like dairy analog for something like this, or we could do food by quality, which is something that was suggested by Damien, because it's more like the milkiness that defines like using plants in this way. But definitely one of the end goals of this is we would like to have plant milk and nut plant milk, something like that in FoodOn to address user needs. So I believe it was Amanda, sorry, wasn't sure from the username, who gave the FDA update, said that the US FDA is in the comment stage for guidance on plant-based milk alternatives, but the guidance has more to do with nutritional labeling if the word milk is used. The gist seems to be that milk can be used for plant-based milk alternatives. So some highlights from the report, which I really appreciate. You can get to it through the link she's provided, but common or usual names have been established by common usage for some plant-based milk alternatives. These shouldn't actually be points, I realize. Among these names are soy milk and almond milk, and others that qualify the term milk with the plant source of the food. Names that qualify the terms beverage or drink with the plant source of the food are used less frequently, but also appear to be common usage. These names include soy beverage or almond beverage. The name may be a single word, such as soy milk, or multiple words, soy and milk, or hyphenated, soy milk. And then Megali popped in with a kind of the European kind of point perspective. In order to avoid confusion with plant-based beverages, the European Court of Justice ruled on June 14th, 2017, that the use of the names milk and cheese is prohibited when associated with plant-based products. However, there's a list of exceptions provided by the regulation. The list of exceptions, depending on the country, can be found in the European decision here. And then, for example, they would allow the use of the term almond milk and coconut milk due to their traditional uses. So they're also recognizing some descriptive kind of accommodations here. And then Damien kind of raised the point where there's a bunch of competing camps, so kind of mentioned in the very in the overview. So yes, we have these organization or like kind of regional different views and different parts of the world, but we also have the epidemiologists who want to know if they're dealing with an animal or plant-based milk infectious disease outbreak. The industry product marketing managers with consumers in mind who want the term to be exclusive to mammalian milk or want it to be inclusive of plant products. The industrialists, economists, and environmentalists trying to figure out the momentum of plant-based or yeast-based milk tech / adoption. People who are looking for products with a milk-like quality, the organoleptics of it, and motivated by dietary or environmental or ethical reasons. Home and protection line experiments involving milk sourcing and substitution, legislators and legals responding to one or the other community.
Yeah.
This is a nice summary. Thank you. I was late, so but it was very clear, and it is not simple to to decide. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad. So that's kind of where the conversation has settled on. And there is obviously more detail in the individual threads, but I guess, does anyone have any feedback? I guess like I feel like from what we're trying to go on here is do we want to decide if what we have in these branches so far are appropriate enough that everyone feels fine with the primary labels, and that we can move forward with then creating versions of the branches that can accommodate everybody.
I have already agreed in the GitHub at the upper level, etc. But I have just a question. Why is butter fat the same thing as milk fat? Because for me there is the fat component of milk, and on the other side there is a butter, which is a product. But here it's butter fat. I mean, I guess it is the way you name it in English usually.
Yeah, my understanding from what I did looking into butter fat back for this definition was that milk fat and butter fat are the same thing. Okay. It's just it turns into butter when it is completely separated out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I guess
so. Aren't they technically not quite the same thing because one of them requires more separation or more processing?
Mm-hmm.
So what would you consider your milk fat?
So, I'm seeing online that cream.
I think the raw product is milk fat. Milk fat, it is the fat of the milk. But milk fat food product, I don't know. There is already a transformation.
Like think about
and so it is the same thing as butter fat for me, but I don't know really how it is used.
Think here's a good example. Think about like the fat that's in milk versus ghee, which is clarified butter. Ghee is
yes, of course, clarified butter. That is butter. When you have removed the steric proteins, so it is a processed clarified butter is not the same thing as butter fat, I think.
I agree. I don't think I think it would be an example of a subclass product, like a more specific product. But it's not the butter fat component of dairy.
Yeah, there's an implication here that cream could fit under milk fat food product, but cream would not fit under butter fat food product. Is that right?
Yeah. You could have, yeah, I would think that cream would fit under dairy food product. And then depending on how you want to organize it in relation to milk, because milk is generally a thinner version of like cream, right? Unless like depending on how you want to define milk. So I think that will be definitely something that we need to explore for the sub branches of the hierarchy, is how we relate all those, or how it's already being related in different systems too.
But I think that Damien, you were saying that cream can be under milk fat food product. That it?
Yeah.
I would agree with that proposal.
Okay.
But not butter fat.
But yes.
So, and yet butter fat is created from cream. So it's a process, the process interlinkage processes separate the hierarchies here. So butter fat product is derived from, I don't know if it's, would you say it's derived, is butter?
That was my question. In fact, if I don't know if butter fat and butter are the same thing.
Yeah, right.
They're not.
Okay.
They are not, yes.
No, at least from the initial like versions we had here and from the research I did at the time. Yeah, butter is made from butter fat, but you can refer to butter fat while it is not in the form of butter.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
But we can definitely do follow up on that to confirm.
Okay.
And not just do it on the fly here. Confirm that that is indeed the case.
But as regard to the upper level,
yeah,
I think it is clear that there is some mammalian milk and some non-mammalian milk. But the problem is the use of the term milk in Europe, for example. But I think in English, I don't know if we can make some specification to say that. Yes, because there is a language, but there are some country I don't know how to say.
This is a good question. This is a good question. We should stop just thinking about English.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Agnieszka,
I have to think in English. It is not easy.
In lait, I know café du lait. So du lait in France, do you have almond milk is, how is that said in French? Correctly?
Almond milk is one of the exceptions, so we can say lait d'amande.
Right. So they're actually paying attention to an exception in a different language for the translation of the word lait, right?
But if you go to the European decision, it is clearly stated. I think they don't. I don't remember. We have to check if it is translated or not. I think it is in French version. You see all the language. But
Yeah.
if you have the English version, if you prefer, so you can check. Please check, and there is in the annex 1, I think.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
Trying to see if I could search for
it is in
almond.
the original language, you know.
Ah, okay.
It is not translated into English, and for Brittany, for UK, you can see that there is some. I guess, but UK is no more in Europe, but it's complicated. So in French, there is no mention of the English translation. It was just my own interpretation because I have to write in English for you.
What would oat milk be in French, like lait d'avoine, or is there like a different term for it? Like, I think that's what we're trying to get at.
You can't say oat milk. You have to say oat juice or oat beverage or oat bait. You can't use the term milk because
So
you
that's
have.
kind of the distinction we're getting at, right? Because it's like we've decided that lait d'almond is okay, but like lait d'avoine is not.
Yes, it was because of the former use, I think.
Yeah, like the ones that had already kind of become
it was
common
already
usage.
used. So the legislator have agreed that it is an exception. I'm sorry, it is complicated.
Well, that's okay. I think that's. Oh, go ahead, Kai.
No, I was just gonna say in that case, like, could we just be really formal and define things by the original name? So like instead of calling oat milk, we call it oat beverage, and then
Yes,
it has a synonym oat milk.
I think it will be one of the solution because or we have to. I think that if we start from the biological definition of milk, it is clear, and then I think we should use beverage or juice or extract. I don't know, but I think it is the same recommendation by the FDA. But perhaps you are more tolerant for the milk. For you, the gist seems to be that milk can be used for PBMA. So it is accepted, but it is not the generic definition. And then yes, you are right. There was another point, which was the use of alternative or substitute or analog. That's another point.
Yes. Yeah. Which one do we go for? Like looking at that, what you linked here, like they clear to use imitation here.
Yes.
I know Damien had in some of our previous discussions been a strong proponent of analog. And I think we had even had that discussion in some different threads that weren't related to milk and dairy about like, what are we using for those kind of labels in FoodOn as the primary label, at least, and what can be considered a synonym.
Mm-hmm. Right. I had a years ago discussion with Matthew, and out of that came that we shouldn't use imitation. I mean, it's okay to have that imitation food in FoodOn as a concept, but that analog is a more politically neutral term, and it goes in both directions. One can be an analog for another, meaning it's just sort of more implying a substitutability or a sensory equivalence. And so the decision was to just go with analog. Unfortunately, I think Matthew did raise.
No, he found that it was not sexy.
Well, I think he raised the example of vanilla, artificial versus natural vanilla. So in that situation, you are trying to peg. You are looking at the provenance of the material. It's pointing back to certain processes rather than others. Same with organic.
Yes, but I remember that the point was that you are saying that it was an organoleptic point of view. It was the same, but it is not the same. So I think it took this example of vanilla to illustrate that you can not have the same organoleptics between. Right. I think it was the point, but I just want to mention that we can also use substitute. Imitation, analog, or substitute can be also a term. But I think I don't know. I don't know if it is useful, but it is another way to say that.
I think I recall. Yeah, I feel like there was a pushback against substitute because that implies that it's like that has, I guess, something about the like putting in a role, or that it's lesser than the original.
Yes, I think it is. But I think it is less. It is a more neutral term, I think. From my point of view, when you say imitation or analog, you have this kind of idea that it is not the same quality. But when we say substitute, I think you mean that it can be the same usage. I don't know if it is ontologically correct, but it is my point of view.
Well, I'm afraid we have to use owl equivalent here. No, or maybe SCOS similar.
Yes, right. We can use the subtlety of the language. So.
But actually, because I have this project about food substitutes.
Right.
So at the beginning, I asked food technologist, professor in food technology, about some definitions. And from what I understood, actually, imitation, I don't know, but analog and substitute, they had some, at least in Poland, they had some different meanings. I could maybe why we discussed, I maybe could find out in my. So a substitute was not exactly the same. Of course, everything defined very vaguely. So maybe there is no very strict difference, but let me see.
Could we just go with beverage?
Yeah.
Oh, so here, beverage. Yeah, Kai, I like your focus on that for the name of the thing itself, but that does still keep open the discussion of relation that FoodOn has right now, which is has food product analog right now. So if there's a need to rename that relation according to instead of analog, a substitute, or then I'm okay with that. We could be renaming it the relation itself. It's used a handful of times. We just sort of tested out that.
So like what is that relation doing? Is it just saying that oat milk is like an analog for milk?
Right now it's linking artificial and natural vanilla as two things that could substitute, because the artificial vanilla is often some other food branch, FoodOn, from the natural, because you can't have them in the same class as you can over in the chemical side of things, but yeah, you can't over in the vanilla plant food product branch. But there needs to be a connection between the two. So that's.
But just a question. I'm not sure. Do you really need the relation as food product analog, or can you make the connection if you assign roles to each product, and they have the same role.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that, but let's study that because it means for every analog we have to have a role defined, a vanilla-like taste role, and then the two products get to land in that. Is that what you're proposing for anything that might have analog?
Yes, I think it is a role is for the usage, and if you have to aromatize a product, you have the choice between an artificial or a natural aroma, but they have both the same role of aromatization.
Okay, but so there's no link between the two products, but you say they have.
How do you need why do you need to link the two products? Because they are not the same.
Well, the robots, how do we tell the robot that, oh, if it doesn't have natural vanilla, it can go to the shelf to get artificial vanilla? It has to know that there's a connection between the two. And so if we're being very specific about what it should reach for, then it has to reach for something that's almost like vanilla.
That sounds a bit more subjective, though. No, like I don't know. I don't think that should get in the way of things like the beverage discussion. But I just don't know if, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
it is. There is subjectivity, certainly, and I'm sure Agnesia can talk to that.
I'm just translated and copied these definitions from the beginning of my project, when a food technologist researcher provided it. So I am not a food technologist, but it's just maybe it's only in Poland, because we found out that there is a huge vocabularies are not that aligned. So there are some vocabularies sometimes with very loose meaning, and there are no equivalents in English, or there is a little bit of language gap. So maybe those are definitions from Poland.
Well, we'd still be interested in seeing them and having them even pasted in here if they're not pages long.
So I paste them on chat.
Okay, great. Okay, I will add those to the document.
So
I guess my point is just that the use case of the analog doesn't seem like an immediately useful task relative to differentiating milk from milk substitutes, or whatever we want to call them, milk beverages. So I would be more in favor of like putting that one on the back burner and fixing this, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, so so actually this might circle back to one thought I had was that the word milk is really about a quality, an organoleptic quality of the substance. And that's what people are searching for when they're trying to figure out if they can swap in oat milk. And I've tried it a few times in my coffee. So there was this milk quality, Magali, rather than a role per se. You could say this substance has a milk quality to it. Or it has.
Yes, but which quality? Because quality is also vague for me, because you can't say it is the same nutritive quality. It is not the same, exactly the same, but it resembles. Yeah,
Yeah. So I'll acknowledge that there is vagueness, just as there's vagueness to these taste wheels in wine and in the whole perceptual variation between people's tongues and things. And yet we still have this word milk that the FDA is willing to dispense upon different foods that actually is representing our use of it in language. So we can name a milk quality in FoodOn without having to specify logically what that means in any greater detail, and just rely on people reading it to have that sense.
Yes, if it is defined as a quality, it is not the same question.
Right.
It is not the label of the product, it is just the name of a quality.
Right.
Yes, okay.
Now, does that appeal to you better than roll, say, for a vanilla quality instead of has a vanilla roll, a vanilla tasting roll? Because you're talking about let's not have, say, an analog relation between artificial and real vanilla. Let's have a role that either of those things can play. But isn't it really?
You mean a role, ROLE?
Yeah, wasn't that what you were talking
I was not sure. Because yes, it is almost the same pronunciation as raw. Also, I was just
right.
wondering.
No.
Sorry.
Right.
Just yes, okay. It's
Roll.
okay for me, but
Roll.
I have not the right I don't know what is the best, but I agree that you have to find a way to say we have the same. But I think it was interesting to read the definition put by Agnieszka. Ryan, if you can copy and paste them, I think it is very useful.
Sure.
Actually,
because I see that there is a notion of technological process, how the process has changed or not the final result. So
I'm not. So I hope these are from my colleague. So I hope these are
yes, but
okay. But I don't have a source, so I may ask her for a source of this definition.
Yes, but I would quite agree. I would agree because I think it is the same thing in French. I can't explain very well, but I think when you have the notion of imitation, it is the final product that imitates. You say that the technological process is changed. I don't know, but perhaps it is depending on the way you are using the product. It can be a point of view. And then, Damian, you said we have to take also into account the source, the provenance. So you have the quality and you have the source, also so the biological or the botanical
yeah,
source.
actually that was a tangent, probably maybe not.
Yes.
I was thinking organic versus not, but that's actually a different thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But can you has a role of having a milk quality with respect to, for instance, taste, or with respect to some other property? Because it may taste the same, but with respect to some other property, it may be not having a role of milk.
Right. Aha.
Yes, that was my it was also my point of view, because you have the organoleptics and you have the nutritional side. You have different criteria to take into account when you say it is the same or not.
Right. So if I'm going to say milk quality, I actually probably have to say milk organoleptic quality. I can't just, and therefore I could have a separate other thing called like milk fat quality or.
Yes, I think it is better to be more specific, because otherwise it is still ambiguous.
So milk taste might be the name of the quality.
Yeah, which we did, for example, if we wanted to have a milk quality, we could apply to milk of magnesia. That wouldn't be milk taste, right? But we might have it for a compositional one, or just in terms of ratio. I don't know, like, or I guess that would be more of an appearance thing when something appears to me milky.
Right. So milk.
Because you have non-food items that are milky, like that we use regularly in descriptions.
Okay, so I'm just testing this out a little bit. Say we had a general milk quality category, and then underneath that we actually had milk taste quality, milk viscosity quality, or something like that. Is that sort of the way to pave the future for more specific meanings? And yet in the first pass we could just say milk has a milk quality without having to imply that they were two substances were identical in all quality respects. So, you know, I'm liking this for the reason that the analog relationship was a bit of a combination bomb because the more you start having things that taste like each other, then you're having to put this analog relationship between them to say there's a connection. Whereas if we do, what do you call it in logic? Monad, a single quality attached to a thing rather than a relationship between two things. If we were to define these qualities, then they just get to attach to any particular food product. But Agnesia,
maintaining the analog thing just seems like a unnecessary work for FoodOn to be doing at this moment. Let's put it that way.
Trying to be comprehensive about it in all its connections. I mean, what we were trying to address is artificial and natural vanilla, milk and milk substitutes. So if we're to contemplate this seriously, we would no longer need substitute in any title, but we would switch to beverage. Oh no, we can't say milk as a general category. That wouldn't happen, but we would say it had to have if a soya milk is now a soya beverage with synonym soya milk, and it has a milk, it has quality, some milk quality. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. That's been my interpretation of this discussion. Because yeah, we wouldn't want to just blanket change substitute, because obviously there are others like form factors of substitutes that aren't beverages. But yeah, have that primary label be coconut beverage, for example, or almond beverage, and then have the synonymity and alternative labels that we can more clearly define, and then has quality milk.
Okay. You know, I was so wanting to like match common language, but then it turns out common language is actually not common. It's shifting across languages, and so therefore I shouldn't have allegiance to milk as an overall term. And so Kai, your suggestion to be more hardcore with beverage actually lines up well with things like that Andres Mahler was saying, and others too. And Magali, it sounds like you're friendly to that too.
I just I don't remember for FDA. It was another. It was an acronym. Plant milk-based analog, no, alternative. I don't know. Okay. But I think it is. I think if we, from my point of view, the right definition of milk is the biological definition. It is the fluid secreted by mammalian female, but it is just my biological education.
Maybe we would
know, but I know the problem of Matthew. I know the problem of everyone, and especially when you are not speaking the same language. But
so why can't we just use beverage as the main term, and then X milk as a related or exact or something synonym?
I think it was the right proposition. It was the best proposal, but I don't know if Damian, do you agree with the proposal?
You have to check the top level hierarchies against that idea.
Because it is always true that it is a beverage in any case.
Yes.
But then you have to specify when you are using milk as a common name for the commercial of marketing side, or anyway for the everyday life. Yes.
The point with an ontology is that we clearly define what everything is, and it has the synonymy as needed. So when people are being really strict in the EU, they point to our term that's primary label is like oat beverage, and they say, okay, this is what we're referring to. And then if later they need a different term for oat milk or whatever, like they don't have to, just because oat beverage has a synonym oat milk doesn't mean that they have to accept that we're calling it oat milk.
Yes, I agree.
It's just a synonym.
Yeah, and it could help in the end if they're combining with a data set somewhere that does use oat milk, that will then help them match those items.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean that, yeah.
Yes, for sure. For sure, it is helpful to have the synonymy to have some text mining or some data naming.
Okay, so that's for sure. But do we have something called a milk beverage in FoodOn? We do, right? But that means that's dedicated to mammalian milk. So is the general policy then that FoodOn sides with more scientific use of language where it disambiguates? I think that's probably what's going on here. And that.
I mean, you have to do something like that, otherwise you're going to get lost in the combinations, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're saying we want a universal milk beverage. Is that what you're saying? That would encompass both mammalian milk and the other beverages, or that have the quality milk? No.
No, we would have a top level beverage.
Yeah. Top level beverage. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the beverage implies you're drinking it, although we can be taking that milk and putting it in pancakes and not drinking it. But let's just call it a liquid. I mean, allow it to be top level.
I think beverage for me, it implies that it is liquid, and then you have the powdered form. You have not finished the story. There is the story is not finished because you have the powder milk also.
Right, we do, don't we? Well, actually, it won't be beverage straight. It'll be oh shoot. Right now, dairy food product is good because you can put dried milk under it. So I'm inclined to use the word beverage outside of the milk product hierarchy. And then if we had it within the milk product hierarchy, it does imply ready for liquid consumption, I think. But have to check our existing hierarchy on that, because we do have things like powdered milk in there, Kool-Aid, powdered Kool-Aid, and all sorts of powdered things.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't those still be addressed by having the food product branch that isn't the beverage one, and we'll just have them nested
flat
polyhierarchy as necessary?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that's good. Definitely a mammalian milk food product. And then other kinds, and then beverage under that, milk beverage. And then
just another question. Do you need to have a poly hierarchy for all the possibilities, or just for example, when you say beverage and then milk beverage, for me it is clear that milk beverage is a specific for the parent is beverage. But then I don't know, you have to have milk beverage under a mammalian milk food product.
Yeah. Yeah, like we don't have to do it. We do it for items
because it is another perspective, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Right, polyhierarchy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how it would look in the end, which is part of why it's hard to display on a flat list. It might be worth doing a little like small owl version of this that isn't in FoodOn, to just do a little like that we could be able to poke through. I don't know how people feel about that.
I think that's a good idea. I think you can quickly make a robot template if you're familiar with that, or if not, if you have time, Rhiannon, to try and do it.
I think I would have time if we can wait till June, I don't have time in May. I'd be happy to try to make a smaller version of it, but before then, I don't know that I could.
Yeah, I'm not saying it has to be you, but if someone had time, they could pop it into a robot template and just make a demo version. And like, you don't have to use FoodOn IDs. You can just make your own and just quickly make a robot template just so people can see it.
Yeah, good idea. Because we want to move this into a robot template anyway. Sounds like not in the same way we've done the animal thing. We don't have to be that systematic, but just a straight template.
Yeah, but now, as you mentioned about the animal thing, we also have animal milk in that template, and I'm just thinking because that's also has been connected to the Uberon milk.
Yep.
And Uberon milk is a very state specific. So I don't know if we should keep that or should we make it a state specific over there as well.
I guess the question is, would you, for animal milk, since it would in that case be mammalian milk, would you be comfortable using mammalian milk food product, or should we add a parent term that says animal milk food product above mammalian milk food product?
I'm not sure.
I mean, basic biology, like my understanding of being a mammal is that you produce milk, or at least some of us can. I can't, but.
And it's sufficient to say mammalian milk. It is clear that a mammal is an animal, but only mammalian produce milk.
Yeah. So in that case, I think we don't need both.
Yeah. So for your use case, Anusha, could you just use the mammalian milk food product?
Oh, so the difference is that the animal hierarchy there, we can multi-home things under there, but the having stuff under Uberon doesn't necessarily mean that it's
nothing's under Uberon. So
well, I mean, over on the Uberon side, if we say bear milk, actually we are talking about food products there, aren't we?
Yeah, but we're saying is derived from the Uberon term milk. We decided at a previous meeting, Uberon milk was not being in the food product hierarchy. It was just in the bodily fluids product or bodily fluids. And then we'll refer to it through axioms for all of the milk food products, was what we'd previously discussed.
Sure. That's great. I was just trying to remember if the animal template is pointing out bear milk, literally like milk as a product and derives from, and taxa bear.
Well, we still have a couple minutes. Anusha, do you want to just show it to us and we can have a look?
Maybe you can open that at your side because you've already opened this document. So I've just shared the link in the chat.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Exactly.
Great.
I think it's it's at row number 8.
Sorry, I have a lot of tabs open. My computer's being slow.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
Row number 8. Here we go.
Thanks.
Which is produced by animal lactation.
Okay, do we have
and then the axioms right now, we just have it seems like it's not wanting to clearly follow the taxon. Oh, right. Okay, yeah. So here you come to that, but we had previously discussed on the mammalian milk that it would be derived from.
So this is so direct that it would literally fall underneath the Uberon hierarchy, but we could just switch this to actually being more in the product category by saying derives from rather than in. I guess since many of these other references are they're not oh, right. Sorry. So this whole hierarchy over here, we were trying to address Emma's thing about not wanting to necessarily reference something as a product. And so all of these terms can be referenced outside of the food product context. And that's why milk and in taxon some doesn't, so this doesn't have to be in the product hierarchy. It'll be in a separate hierarchy, but then we can multi-home it through inference, I think, over into the product hierarchy. It's just that we don't want to directly have it hard-coded as a food product.
Okay. Oh, so yeah. So I guess like if people know they're using food, then they could go with the mammalian food product. But the idea is if they're referring to milk outside of the food context.
Yeah, we wanted to
I
create
see.
that reference for them in this whole animal hierarchy, and then the same in the plant hierarchy as well.
Then the definition, would the definition be same, or would that be a bit different? Like
It can be the same.
specifically,
It's certainly true, that particular definition, milk, which is produced by lactation, doesn't reference products at all.
mhm.
Yeah, isn't necessarily a food product. It can be referenced as one, but that's like with other knowledge at play.
Just trying to put a little example. Okay. Like milk within an animal at the time is not, the food product version. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, so these, so we need to have, we'll have some relationships with animal milk.
Yeah. I try to have, that was on my to-do, to have an inference that would allow things like animal milk to pop over into the food product hierarchy rather than making people puzzled about why they can't actually see the term cow milk there, for example. Although it's different, right? This cow milk liquid and cow milk powdered.
Yeah, and those are some previous terms that were already existing in FoodOn. It doesn't mean we necessarily have to make these. These were just, and sorry, I can't tell because I didn't add all the IDs and when I made this previously. But yeah, these are ones I believe we came in from Languel, I think, or maybe we made them ourselves. But so then, if you don't want to have liquid powdered versions of it, if you just want to keep those separate and people can combine them as needed, or if you want them pre-composed. I mean, I guess we could keep the ones that are already pre-composed and then just not do this for everything else.
Yeah, right. Those particular ones are very popular, very commonly referenced. So certainly keep those. And I'm just remembering now. So Uberon cow milk is a liquid. It is already set to be a certain thing. This cow milk, general cow milk here, is less committed about whether it's actually liquid or powdered.
Yeah,
So,
which is definitely, I believe, part of why we didn't want to say it is like is Uberon milk. We want to say derived from because it can be
I can guess that it should it probably came from Languel, and I think the point is to distinguish between the liquid form, but it is not the liquid from the the fluid from the cow. It is the liquid that you can have as a beverage or as an ingredient, but in a liquid form. But it is not the same, exactly the same thing. It is, when you say into brackets, I think you mentioned there is some kind of process already. There has been almost just when you have the milk from the cow, you have to refrigerate it, to transport it, to bottle it eventually. But
that's what
it is not the raw product from the
right. So actually that suggests one thing that would help distinguish over on the Uberon and the animal hierarchy, which is to use the word raw, perhaps, for the milk terms over there, to distinguish them from over here, where we can be dealing with pasteurized.
Yes, I think it will be. We have already this discussion about the use of raw. I think it is interesting to keep track of the difference. Yes.
Okay.
When you say raw, it is the primary product.
Yeah, and it looks like you guys in your animal hierarchy, yeah, you have milk raw.
Right. So,
So
Yes, but it is not a product here.
no,
It is not a food product. It is a
Yeah.
Yes, I think we should clarify that.
so
Yeah.
yeah, you mean you want to have a version of like mammalian milk beverage raw that relates to the like animal milk raw
Mhm.
somehow.
Reminds me of the harvested thing. Like we do want,
Yes, that's it. Yes.
we're really talking about harvested milk here.
Mhm.
As the
Yes.
as entry point to the food as a product. So it sounds a little dorky, but the pure title would be mammalian milk harvested as a general category.
Yeah.
Harvested mammalian milk, or whatever the term that the dairy people talk about there.
So
I would say
you want-
collected, but I think if you mention that it is a raw product and it is in the food product hierarchy, and it is raw, I think I don't know how to say
the
that.
thing about if we do raw at this level though, then it implies everything to come beneath it is raw, which it
Right.
won't be. So we can have a raw version for sure, but we don't want this highest level one to be raw. Right?
Right.
They all would be harvested because they all definitely had that happen in order to get to the state of being a food product.
Yes,
But
yes,
they aren't all still raw. Yeah.
I think raw is meaning that there is no transformation apart from collecting or minimal minimal transformation. I mean,
Right. Oh, we don't need the word harvested in conjunction with food product, because food product
Okay.
already implies
that. Okay.
Yeah. But it's down at the cow milk liquid part where we might just be able to say cow milk harvested, or harvested cow milk, possibly, to clear up the distinction between the Uberon anatomy thing and this.
So like at this level here.
Yes.
Okay.
and so raw is referring to the. I don't understand the difference.
So raw,
when are you using raw and when are you using harvested? It is not clear for me.
Right.
So they're all harvested. Everything
Yes.
would be harvested. It's implied from the fact that they're all food products. And then
Yes.
when if say you had a data item in a set and you actually aren't aware that it's raw, you would use the more general mammalian milk beverage. But if you are certain it is raw, it is in its pre-processed, unprocessed state, then you could use mammalian milk beverage raw.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then why do you have to mention harvested?
Yeah.
Only in the case of cow milk, because Uberon also has this term. Although is Uberon one specifically to cow milk, or is it mammalian milk? Isn't it mammalian milk?
Yeah, but then
in
the animal template, we're creating all those subclasses for each kind of animal's milk. And
so is it
harvested?
But just my question is mammalian milk by organism a food product branch or not?
No, it won't be. It'll be sitting outside
Okay.
of the food product branch.
And so you don't have to have liquid or powdered under cow milk. I think it is not the.
So this was originally being proposed
you can, yes,
as that, as a way to organize it, but we don't have to have this intermediary.
Oh, no. Let's see.
In some of our previous discussions. So this is just like, so it would be basically.
In my view, it has to be a food product if you say it is powdered or harvested because it has been processed.
Okay. Yeah.
So it is a product for me.
Yeah, that's right. So that might work just like that for ambiguity. Then we don't have to have the word harvested in there at all.
I think it is a food product. It has been harvested. It is a.
Yeah, and this is all supposed to. Yeah.
Yes.
And it might have to update some labels, or I can't remember if these are some labeled terms. But yeah, I think when it comes to all the liquid and powdered and all those versions, those are all within food product hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, food products. So that's actually the last little question to discuss. Cow milk food product. That sounds like cheese can be a cow milk food product. In other words, that's a very general term. So this cow milk liquid and powdered was meaning cow milk itself, not so broad as food product.
Yes, but we can have under cow milk food product, we can add cheese, for example.
Exactly.
Because it is not the same as cow milk food product liquid. You can add cheese.
Right. Okay. There.
Yeah, like it would just be a sibling class, right?
Yeah. And don't even need.
Oh, the world of dairy products. It is my original competence or discipline, or I don't know, business. I was in charge of cheese quality. So
we are so happy to have you, Miss Expert.
In the previous life. Sorry for the.
Okay.
So sorry, I couldn't understand this thing. Only that cow milk food product liquid. Is it referring to the cow milk which is liquid, or any food product that has ingredient as like liquid cow milk?
Yeah, whether we need a very general term. I know for a fact we need the specific term, cow milk liquid and cow milk powdered.
Yes, I think that cow milk food product liquid is any form of product. It is product in a liquid form. It is not products that have liquid ingredients. They should be liquid products. If it is cow milk food product liquid, you can have cow milk beverage with vanilla inside, or anything you want.
Yes.
But it is still the basis is still cow milk food. It is still a liquid milk.
Right. So we're going to have another term under there, Rhiannon, called cow milk liquid. To
plain milk, for example.
You mean under here?
Right. I don't know if we need one under powdered, because the only thing I can imagine powdered. Well, no, whey can be powdered. You can have different.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and people often use that in cheese making
and
broth making.
You can also have a cheese powder. It is not so it is not usual, but it can be.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we'll need one here as well.
Right.
But I guess for those versions, though, should we hold off until we get people actually requesting them, and otherwise people can just, or do you guys feel like we need, for cheese and milk, for all the different organisms we have going on, should we have a blank milk liquid and blank milk powdered?
I was going to suggest that maybe if this becomes a new template, we remove animal milk from the animal parts template and populate things as needed in this template on request.
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me as well, because I think there's another level of complexity here.
Because Anusha, you were right. Like, if to use the animal product template for milk, we would need a top level term, animal milk, just because that'll get created by the process. So if we don't want to have that because it's biologically just unnecessary, then maybe it makes more sense to have that not be in that animal parts template.
There aren't going to be that many entries here that are generic across the animals, but I think the top level term wouldn't be animal milk, it would be mammalian animal milk.
Right, but because of the way the template works, it's going to create an animal milk. So it'll be like, unless we can find an exception to the rule to like not make that, but my understanding is that it's always going to make that.
Yeah. Well, let's park that as a separate question from this dev at the moment.
Just because it would make sense to have like all like kind of milks in one place, and all dairy products kind of in one place, like, you know, different organisms against their different milks and cheeses and creams and fats and whatever.
Yeah, just I think maybe Western bias, but I think beyond sheep and cow, there wouldn't be a lot, and goat, there wouldn't be much other activity there, but it could just be a bias.
Right, but what I'm saying is that rather than in the animal part template, we mostly have body part terms, right?
Mhm.
That's like the majority of them. There's eggs too, but the majority are body parts. So if we, and we're crossing that against a large list of animals, or not just animals, but of,
Well,
we're crossing that against a large list of just animals. So I'm thinking that if there's only a few dairy animals, maybe that could actually be in a separate dairy template, which is kind of like what we're talking about here.
yeah, right. We can move those guys out of that template into this.
I think you can have the same, I don't know if it is the same, but what about egg? So because milk or egg are not the body part, they are production of the animal.
Right, so we have that here as animal organism substance, as you can see on the shared screen. So animal egg and animal milk are both
Yes.
animal organism substance children.
Okay, so it is the same kind of thing for egg and for milk.
Yeah. So, but
Okay.
what I'm saying is that if we're going to maintain a complicated milk template elsewhere, then I say we might want to remove milk and milk raw from this animal part template.
Mhm.
And have only under milk food product the different kind of animal source under milk food product by organism. That's
Well, we
your
just wouldn't be in this template, is what I'm suggesting.
Okay,
because
okay.
We're going to have a lot of different,
At the moment,
a lot of variants on milk.
Yes, you want to skip it. Yes, okay.
at the
for
moment,
here.
this is going to just generate like 20 terms. It's shallow, so we're still going to have this. Even if we left these in here, it would only be generating like 20 terms, and then we would still have the bulk of the hierarchy over in a dairy hierarchy.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just saying if you want to, it's just something to think about. Sorry, I don't belabor
Yeah.
the point.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're over the hour now, but this has been really great.
Just to say, yes, it was really great. And so I was thinking about my presentation about FoodX2 mapping, and I think we have to think about when the product branch will be clear up.
Right.
But it is very interesting to discuss because the different point of view and the axiomatization versus usage. It's very interesting. Thank you very much for the discussion.
Great. And
See you.
I guarantee that any existing FoodOn IDs and their semantics will be maintained. So at least there's a quicksand in that particular department.
But Magali, I would say that mapping would make more sense to do all of after we finish the animal and
Yes,
plant
of course.
part templates.
Yes.
And I can help you with that too if I have time.
Oh,
So
that's
we'll
really
see.
great.
Or the checklist. I'm hoping to get that checklist working group together. And if that actually happens, then I will try to make that one of the sub-objectives is to make that mapping, because I want to make USDA's data interoperable with European stuff that's EFSA. So
It's really fine if you can help me.
yeah,
But
so we'll
yes,
see.
yeah,
We'll see.
so
But
delightful. Yes, thank you.
I would recommend maybe after taking it
After, yes,
seriously.
of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cheers.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.